for the meeting tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for coming and changing their schedule to ensure we had a quorum tonight for the meeting, which normally is on Thursday, but this week we have it on Tuesday. So thank you everyone for making the effort to make sure we have a quorum. So with that said, in August, we normally have a report on the Kettle Point TIF revenue. I think some of the older members might remember how we get this annual assessment that shows the performance of the how the TIF bonds and the revenues are being measured at Kettle Point. That report was delivered late last week, so it wasn't in time to have for tonight's agenda. So we'll have that in September, but the report does show continued strong performance of the area where the revenues are more than sufficient to support the public improvement there. So, but we'll have more details next week. So with that said, the first item of business is to vote on the approval of minutes from June 27, 2024. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Second item on the agenda is new business. It's a continuation of a public hearing and Metacomet Property LLC's application for its proposed development located at 500 Veterans Memorial Parkway. We all know the lot and map number. So tonight, I believe it's just a continuation of information provided by the applicant on some updates on some new studies that were completed that will be provided to the commission and to the members. There will be, from what I understand, no votes tonight taking, but again, it's a continuation of public hearing. So we'll hear from the applicant on the various matters that they'll present. There'll be questions from the commission members. And again, there will be, like to also note that Mr. O'Connell's here for the record as well. And then we'll, have public comment and a question and answer period on those items. So with that said, I turn it over to the applicant for their presentation for tonight. And just to remind members, if they are speaking, just to use the red, push the button so they make sure the mic's on, or folks on TV won't hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Fazioli. Again, for the record, my name is Josh Berlinski. I'm with the firm of Darrow Everett, representing the applicant, Metacomet Development LLC. As you explained, we are simply here to continue our permitting process. We have a few updates for you this evening and members of the public. The first update is going to be provided by Todd Poole of Forward Planning. As the commission may recall, as part of our initial submission, we presented a fiscal impact assessment prepared by Mr. Poole. The commission sent it out for peer review to RKG Associates, and we then sent that peer review to Mr. Poole for consideration and potential revisions or updates to his report, which he has prepared, and he has come here from Philadelphia to discuss with the commission. So I'll just defer to him, and he can start talking you through it. That's fine.
Oh, thank you. And so what I'd like to do is take you through kind of a condensed version of the presentation that I gave earlier back in February on the fiscal impact analysis. I'm sorry, Todd Poole. I'm with Forward Planning, and actually you can roll through next slide and the next one. Todd Poole with Forward Planning. I'm managing principal. We are land use economists, and we perform economic and real estate analysis for public and private sector clients throughout the Northeast, and was retained to perform both a market analysis and fiscal impact analysis on the Metacomet development project. Next. Just give you a understanding of our experience, at least in this area of Providence, the Providence metro area. We've worked in this area for the last several years, going actually back about 10 years or so. So we're familiar with the area generally, and that gave us a good basis performing this study. My background, I've been in this field for a little over 32 years. and I have a BA in economics and political science and a master's in public administration with a focus in finance. And I've worked in the public sector for about 12 years before going into consulting, worked for a number of firms, and performed economic development projects in a variety of places around the U.S. So as I mentioned back in February, there are certain methods and data that goes into performing a fiscal impact analysis. On the screen are some of the key inputs that go into performing such an analysis. Multipliers, which I'll talk about in a second, residential multipliers. Budget information, which is really the municipal budget. We need to have the most current budget, and actually in this latest revision, we updated our budget figures to 2024 from 2023, which was done on the first iteration of the study. The tax rates, obviously the project information, and then we also do what's referred to as a pro forma analysis. It's what a developer does to understand what the prospective financial returns might be if they were to develop the project, if it's going to be financially viable, and to what extent. And of course, we also have to understand population data, existing population in the city, as well as the population that would result as the project is completed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. This is kind of looking under the hood, but as I mentioned, multipliers or residential multipliers are necessary to estimate how many residents would result as a function of the number of housing units being developed. Multipliers really come from census data that is based on, in this particular case, new apartments and townhouse units that have been built in Rhode Island over the last 6 years or so. We're using American Community Survey data. We've built an algorithm that is able to pull this data in. Based on the type of housing units, rental in particular, we're able to make an estimate of how many residents as well as public school age children would be generated by development of this type. This is in the report as well. So this is just a quick summary of the appropriations from your 2024 budget. We use this or these numbers to arrive at an estimated per capita service cost. That is to say that for every new person that would move into this project, we estimate municipal service costs of about $655. And again, if you look at the report, we kind of walk through how we get there. Effectively, what we do is we take the total appropriations, in this case, about $191 million for 2024, and then we strip out things such as salaries and benefits, debt service, and other metrics, just getting at those numbers that are likely to change when somebody moves in. To the extent that you need to hire new personnel, we estimate that cost for a new officer, or firefighter, or whatever. We take out those metrics because oftentimes when a new person moves into your city, those figures don't change. In other words, the next person who moves into East Providence, you're not hiring a police officer, firefighter, certainly not hiring a new administrative staff person. So we make sure that when we're doing this analysis, that it is logical. And I would also like to say that this also extends to your school district. The same philosophy and method applies. So if you've got, in your particular case, the East Providence School District, which has a relatively flat enrollment growth rate, barely above 1% over the last 5 years. The next child who shows up is not going to cost you $18,000 or $25,000 a year. That student is likely to cost no more than $4,000 or $5,000 a year. The assumption that they walk into a classroom where there are the seats, the books, there's already people in the classroom. We do these analyses for a variety of municipalities in different states. We've also had discussions with many superintendents about this approach and method, and we've never had any pushback. It's good method. Oh, I forgot the Tad's animations in it. So what I want to do quickly is just walk you through kind of the breakout of this project. There are 604 proposed multifamily rental units that are not age restricted. These represent studios to 3-bedroom units. And based on the multipliers associated with each one of those units, and understanding that each unit, a studio, a 1, a 2, a 3-bedroom, has a different multiplier associated with it. So as you might imagine, a studio is not likely to have more than one person living in it. And a 3-bedroom unit can have up to 4 people living in that unit. Based on those multipliers and the number of units and how they break out, we're estimating a total occupants of 854, 70 of whom would be public school age students. And I want to emphasize public school age students. This is to say that, again, based on census data, these are 70 students we would project to be enrolled in the public school system. There, you will probably have school children that will be going to parochial school or some other private school. But based on, multipliers and estimates that have been developed for this type of analysis, we're estimating 70 public school children. In this project, you'll have 160 age-restricted units. That is to say that unless you are 55 or 50 years of age, you will not be able to move into these particular units. These are 2- and 3-bedroom units. And based on multipliers, we estimate a total of 243. There will be 80 assisted living units, and assisted living units, for all intents and purposes, mimic multifamily. Obviously, assisted living is in the name. Yes, if there will be other services offered. For purposes of doing this type of analysis, an assisted living unit is not all that distinguishable. 121 total occupants is estimated for these units. The project will also have 24 2-bedroom townhouses. And based on multipliers for this particular product type, we estimate 37 total occupants. This will be public school age. And finally, 3-bedroom duplexes of 22. And 47 occupants, projected 11 public school students. You can see there's a relatively sharp increase in 2-bedroom units. 2-bedroom units, and that's pretty typical. We see that in other areas geographically. Once you move from 2 to 3-bedroom units, you'll get a greater percentage rise in the number of public. And then on the commercial side, this project will have a combination of retail restaurants, businesses that will comprise of 153,000 square feet. Based on the 153,000 square feet and based on standard metrics that this profession use, we've estimated about 460 full and part-time workers in this facility. So kind of a recap, 938 residents within the non-age restricted and living facility, 243 in the age restricted, 121 in the age restricted. 83 all residents represent children. total of 1,302 total residents and total. Next. So based on when looking at your current budget, based on looking at your tax rate, having performed the format analysis that we need to identify the value of the property done to the income approach. I did early in this process speak to your tax assessor to confirm that the way that you would likely look assessing this pretty standard for usually valued on an income approach. And so using that approach and then taking that estimated assessment, we came up with the tax revenues for this project that you have here on the screen of almost $5.3 million. We've also come up with the estimated municipal service cost of approximately $450,000 for each state. And then for a net impact, that is to say, the estimated revenues minus the estimated service costs, just under $5 million. I will note that I did not perform an analysis on the school district, and typically I do. Could not. They could not put a full district budget. District fiscal impact analyses before in Rhode Island. And this is the first time I've never been able to self. But had I been able to, I would have been able to show you what that impact would be. I will say this, based on 83 children, net fiscal impact of almost $5 million, there is more than sufficient revenue to work with public likely has pretty good capacity.
Oh, thank you, thank you again. Just so the public knows, I believe this report was sent to staff this afternoon. So this is the first time we're seeing it. So it's not. We'll make it available to the public as soon as we can, upload it on the website. So I just wanted people to understand the timeline and the context. So a couple of questions. I think the report you indicated you took into account also some other large multifamily developments happening in the city. The one on Waterfront Trail, the one on Newport Avenue. I forget another one, but for some reason, I don't know if, and I think the RKV report noted East Point development that's being proposed. Was that part of your analysis for this report?
We may have missed that one, but we don't feel that it's that's it. I mean, this project is distinctively distinct from that project. That matters. You can have new housing built in the market product. Instead, you'll have facility because
Yeah, the reason I bring it up because I think as a commission we kind of need to think about the aggregate impact of all the development happening in the city from Riverside to Rumford and what potentially that could have on municipal services. So there's 396 units permitted for East Point, which is actually under construction right now. So that will obviously have an impact on, city services. The wastewater, I believe, is serviced by Narragansett Bay Commission up there in Rumford. So, but obviously police, fire, water. So that's something that we will take a look at. And I think the RKV brought that out. So. And then the only other question I have is I know, unfortunately, if we get you a school budget, which I think we can probably get a hold of one because I think they're voting on it tonight, actually, at least their proposed budget to the mayor. And the mayor has to submit his budget to the council, I think, in August. So we'll have a school budget that maybe we could provide you. And then, because again, one additional student won't generate thousands of dollars of increased cost to the city, but 83 possibly could. But when you overlay that with the enrollment trends, which you had mentioned are declining, we could sort of net that impact out.
So, like I said, it's unusual for, unless a school district is already capacity for them to show up. $25,000. Typically what we see is in urban school districts, where we go, losing. Some costs.
Yeah, and that's really a function of the lower fertility rate, worldwide. Just overall, people are having children. The lack of housing, prevents formation of households, and so people aren't having kids well into their 30s now, whereas maybe in years ago it's in their 20s. But again, we'll probably as a commission have an opportunity to review the report in more depth. Ray, you can put it on the website and distribute it to the commission members. And we might have some follow-up questions, but I don't think it requires you to come back at all. We could probably just email you questions and maybe have a discussion that way. So, and again, we'll upload that as soon as we can this afternoon, tomorrow morning, if possible. Thank you. Other questions from the commission members? We'll allow the public to ask questions after the full presentation.
Thank you very much. The second presentation is from Deborah Cox, who is with the Public Archaeological Laboratory, Inc. Her firm is responsible for the archaeological assessment and responding survey. I'll let Deb speak for a few minutes. That's fine.
Good evening. I was here a couple of months ago before we did any field work and went over what we were going to do. I'm happy to tell you that we completed our field work recently, and we are finalizing our report. Right now it's going to review at the office, but this is just to give you a preliminary view of what we found. I think I explained when I was here last time that we are really concerned about the top 3 feet of the ground, from the ground surface down 3 feet. Below that, it is unlikely that there would be any remains, any cultural material. So as we suspected, the majority of the area, the top 3 feet, has been impacted by 100 years of recreation use from the golf course. I'm sure many of you are golfers, so you need irrigation systems, and the greens change slightly the two areas. We did find a small area of relatively undisturbed soil. That's probably 5%. I can tell you definitively, we did not find any human remains. That was a concern in some people. We did find historic material, this trash that had been strewn about, broken glass, broken pottery, broken window panes, some structural remains. And we also did find Native American material, projectile points or arrow points, as we commonly call them, stone tools, and what we call chipping debris, which is stone that remains after stone tool has been manufactured and maintained. So when we finalize the report, we're going to submit it to the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage, which permitted us to do the project. And that will be within the week. They will have 30 days to review, and they will comment and discuss what needs to happen. So, any questions?
Maybe you could give the commission and the public some background on who participated in the work that you did.
Oh, yes. Well, besides the Public Archaeology Laboratory staff, I think there was anywhere between 4 and 6 people. We also had 2 representatives from the Narragansett tribe with us every day. So the Narragansett tribe will also be receiving a copy of the report.
And the scope of the work that was performed is on the upland portion of the property, not currently the portion that's used as a golf course.
No, no, it's not the,
It's the upland.
it's
portion.
just the up.
And you said that the percent of area that was found any type of archaeological items was 5%?
Yes, it was less than 5% of that total area. I mean, we found historic debris, scattered throughout, anywhere from plastic bottles to ceramics that may date from the early 20th. But for the Native American artifacts, it was really confined to an area that was relatively
And the travel of this goes to the statewide historic preservation for comment, and then it goes to public. When does it become public, I guess?
well, the locational information on archaeological sites is confidential and protected, but the report itself, taking that locational information out can be made available to the public after the historic preservation.
And we submitted this week at some point,
We will submit it to them this week.
and they have a 30-day review period.
But, what Ms. Cox is saying is that after we hear from State Historic, and I don't want to say there's a ruling on it, but we receive their comments on it, then there's a discussion subject to the redactions and privacy as to what else gets released. So that's obviously up to the state. There's a determination as to what's considered confidential. And then we understand the city and the public's, ongoing interest in this, and we'll do everything we can to be as transparent as possible, subject to the confidentiality obligations that we're bound to with both the historic as well as the Narragansett tribe itself, with whom we're in constant contact. So we're trying to honor that obligation while at the same time satisfy the public's need to know. But as Deborah said, once it's submitted this week and the state and the tribe have had their opportunity to review and comment, and we see where we are on that, we intend to bring Deborah back for a further update and to refine her presentation with some more details and hopefully some conclusions along those lines.
This one last general question. What constitutes, what type of property constitutes this type of analysis being done? I mean, there's been work done in other parts of the city, excavation taking place actually along the parkway by DOT. There's city doing work at Bowl Point. I mean, what triggers this type of review?
So it's an interesting question. So first, this is obviously a voluntary submission on behalf of private property. We're aware that members of the public, and I believe members of city staff as well, perhaps sent correspondence to CRMC inquiring about the archaeological sensitivity of the site, to which CRMC responded that it's potentially significant and we recommend investigation. So upon receipt of that documentation, I think the city might have received a letter about a year before we knew about it, but we received a copy about it after, and we engaged PAL for purposes of conducting an analysis. So they did the initial assessment, which was really based on a visual inspection, in which part of our application, and they identified, I think, 4 areas of study, which we discussed. It was where there would be excavation and higher lands. And then, due to its proximity to waterways, and Deb can go into the criteria as to its location, we're obviously aware that in the surrounding vicinity, there's been some findings as well. So we're aware of that there's a heightened sensitivity to this. I mean, sensitivity not in the legal sense, but practically, people want to make sure that everything's being done properly and with the due respect that the process deserves. So Deb can speak as to what the particular statutory or regulatory triggers are, but simply because there was sufficient consensus amongst the public and members of the city that this deserved looking into, the applicant took it upon itself to begin that process, knowing full well that there had to be some closure on that issue before the project. And Deb, if you want to speak to the precise statutory or regulatory triggers.
Well, I was just going to mention that we did look at the RIDOT work around Veterans Memorial Parkway. RIDOT has a cultural resource unit, and they determine what projects that they want an archaeologist to look at because of state and federal. So we did look at that.
Thank you. Any other question from the commission members?
Yes, just one question. Were you personally there for the survey to look at the findings of what was found, or was it just other people who did that?
I was not there. It was field staff and the principal investigator. Who's actually
Okay. I'm just curious.
oversee.
No, I understand.
Sure.
That's fine. That's fine. My question is, the arrowhead that you talked about, the projectile point, was it a loose arrowhead all by itself, or was there an arrow? Was it part of an arrow too
No, it was all by itself.
by itself? That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Wait, probably 2,000 years old.
2000.
Not attached.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Thank you for your presentation and we look forward to the update.
Conclude tonight, I thought, at the last month's meeting, I introduced this concept of like the ongoing deliverables, just so we could keep track. So I updated it. So can you put that Word document on the screen so we can just go over briefly where we are? Make it bigger.
Okay. Maybe you could read from it, Josh? Okay.
Work on that. Actually, Mr. Levy is going to read from that for us, actually. Okay, so I'll share this. So we had 7 categories that we identified. So the first was archaeological, which was, the description was the commission needs to review the analysis submitted by Cal following the survey of the property. Survey was completed June 15th. We provided an update today, and we will have a further update once we hear from State Historic and the Narragansett Tribe have contributed to that discourse. So Deb will be back, and we'll have a further update on this. Architectural plans. In June, we submitted updated renderings for the residential buildings that show the last comments and critiques that we'd received from DRC. Those were completed and delivered June. We don't believe there's any further comments or requests made in that regard. So we believe from a design standpoint, we're complete. We previously submitted renderings for the Phase 1A structure as well. And as some of you may know, at last Thursday's meeting of design review, they recommended approval of that phase. As we established, it then goes to planning, where our recommendation is to consistency with the comprehensive plan before it comes to the full commission. Landscaping and engineering. We've updated landscaping plans for the design review comments. We completed and delivered those on June 13th. We don't believe there are any further requirements or additions to be made to that plan set. The hydro analysis confirming utility capacity. The analysis was complete. At the time we created this last month, or in June, we said it was being reviewed by the city, following which we'll seek affirmative sign off from the city engineering department and DPW. As Paul Pisano mentioned last Thursday, the hydro analysis was completed by Power Engineering last week. I believe I submitted it to the city today, as you asked for it, and we will be working with DPW and the water department to obtain their approval of that, hopefully in time for next month's meeting. But the work has been complete. Now we're just going to seek the city's feedback to make sure that all is copacetic and everything. Then we also are looking for the sign off. And then with regard to stormwater design and calculations, we are completing those plans as well. And we actually expect to have those ready within the next 2 weeks. We're going to submit those to the city for their review because there have been some ongoing engineering concerns that have been raised specifically by PAR's peer review. And we're going to submit those to the city and PAR in the next 10 to 14 days at the latest. And again, we are cautiously optimistic that we'll have consensus and buy-in by the September meetings as well to the stormwater. Then similarly, in the same vein, sign off from the fire department. The fire department issued some comments, I believe, back in April, both from a public safety standpoint and from a water hydro analysis. We'll be working with them to confirm their approval of the water hydro study for sprinkler system capacity. And we'll also be seeking their sign off in general of the project, which we're again, we believe that's attainable by next month's meeting once they've had an opportunity to digest those plans. Fiscal analysis. The review in June was that the peer review from RKG was received in May. The response was being prepared. Mr. Poole has submitted his update. We're confident that the result stands on its own. I will just say for the record that for those of you that may recall the RKG analysis, it largely proved out the fiscal conclusions that Mr. Poole came to in his initial report. It did ask for further clarifications as to any adjustments as a result of affordable housing, and to which Mr. Poole did incorporate into this version for the commission's digestion. So we're confident that the analysis remained true, and that even with the further revisions and updates as a result of the latest fiscal budget that was submitted by the city, that the project is obviously a significant net positive impact for the city from a financial standpoint. The noise study, that was number 5. Back in June, we went to David Coe Consulting, received the truck traffic movements and the corresponding data, as well as the mechanical systems for purposes of incorporating this analysis. We submitted that updated noise study last week, and we discussed its findings at last week's DRC meeting. We're obviously welcome to further comments from the city, but the conclusions, as I prepared a brief summary and read them last week, are that the HVAC disruption is minimal, and that the impacts from noise attributable to increased traffic from the development all fell well below whether it be the Federal Highway Administration, State of Rhode Island, or other comparable federal standards for increases attributable to proposed developments for residential standards. And then finally, for traffic offsite improvements, we had 4 elements there. There was the letter from DOT with the authorization to proceed with the physical alteration permit. There we go. We did receive and present that letter in June. The power engineering peer review approvals. As everybody knows, we received comments from PAR with regard to the Vanessa study, as well as what we refer to as the Crossman supplement. Our traffic engineers blew me off and did not submit those today like they said they would. They have been dealt with accordingly, and I expect those submitted in short order, and we will have those posted on the website as soon as we receive them. Then we are going to take the both the response to the peer reviews as well as the supplemental traffic product that we intended to submit, which we will have some, by the way. We will be sending that to PAR as well as the city department, specifically DPW, to make sure that in planning, to make sure that they are on board with the recommendations and conclusions of the updated traffic work that's being performed. So we understand that that's a significant lift in front of us, and we're anxious to resume that process. And then the last part of it is we said that we would make a good faith effort to obtain a similar letter from Scenic Roadways as we obtained from DOT. Our preliminary outreach along those lines, just so the committee knows, is that Scenic Roadways will not issue that letter on the grounds that the DOT staff the staff that would have issued that letter is the staff that issued it on behalf of DOT. As we've explained previously, Scenic Roadways is almost like adjunct or adjacent to DOT, so they were relying upon the same staff for purposes of it. So we're not closing the book on it yet, but the initial explanation was that the same people would be issuing the letter on behalf of Scenic Roadways that issued it on behalf of DOT. But we're continuing to work through that. Please.
Will they reference the Scenic Roadways within the recommendation letter that they're preparing for DOT?
Say that again, please.
So if they're the same people, they're writing a letter.
Yes.
So see if they can make a recommendation on the review of the scenic items as part of that letter.
That's what we're asking, if they could perhaps amend the letter to say Scenic Roadways as well. So that's it. So DOT is nothing but reasonable in general, as you know. So it's just a matter of how much they can't help enough. So we'll be working with them to see if we can do something on those lines. But I think that's where we end up. If it says this also applies to Scenic Roadways as well, or something like that. That's our goal. So that's our update. We continue to make progress. We're hopeful that the majority of the outstanding submissions will be in over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and that we know there's a September 19th meeting of Waterfront that we're anxiously awaiting, as well as the corresponding meeting of DRC that month, which we'll look forward to presenting. And thank you again for your patience and cooperation thus far.
Any questions for the commission members and the items presented tonight? Okay, so I know that there was a DRC meeting last week on Phase 1A, but that's not subject to tonight's discussion, right? We can't really act on
It's
that.
not,
Yeah.
as we discussed, we understand the sequence, start at DRC, we'll go to planning, whenever we go to planning, and we'll get their recommendation for consistency of phase 1A into plan, at which point we'll come back to, for waterfront for that.
Right, so that'll come back to the Waterfront Commission at another time.
Absolutely, not tonight, and we'll let everyone know in advance,
Yeah.
what the schedule is along those lines.
Just checking my availability on the 19th to make sure we can continue on. So, right. Yeah, go right ahead.
So there's a couple of references here of reports being submitted back to the city. So when those reports are submitted back to the city, can you make sure that we're aware of those so that we can follow up with them to make sure we get reports back in timely fashion, be able to review before the next meeting?
Absolutely. However it works, and I'm happy to work with Ray and Dominic as to the best way of distribution. So up till now, and these have just been reports that have been the subject of these discussions, we've just submitted for purposes of posting on the website. But we'll make sure we'll get a distribution together for everyone so they can see this, so they can be both uploaded to the website and distributed to members of the commission as soon as possible.
I mean, they're important because they're the professionals in that aspect.
Sure.
Our committee, we don't do it on a daily basis. We'd like to be able to review it before the meeting, be able to talk intelligently.
And also, in terms of traffic, we'll send you those reports simultaneous with the submission to PAR. So you'll be able to interact. So members of planning or DPW or this commission, as it is, will be able to interact with them in real time, know that they'll have seen it at the same time you do.
Thank you. We'll work with Ray to make sure whatever reports are sent today and late last week in relation to Phase 1A will be uploaded as soon as possible and made available to the public and to the commission members. So at that time, if members of the public would like to come and speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. All very interesting information. We look forward to studying it further and making comments at some future time. I want to follow up on a question I have regarding the term amplified as it refers to music on the Metacomet site. The design guidelines for the Metacomet subdistrict on page 4 under green space within the development. Number 3, public greens and or gathering spaces are encouraged to create a sense of community. As with outdoor dining, non-amplified music is permitted and encouraged. Amplified programs may be permitted by the commission on a case-by-case basis. Outdoor music or programs are prohibited between 10 p.m. and 10 a.m. With that in mind, I did ask in a July 11th email to Attorney Goins, copied Chairman Fazioli and Executive Director Levy, for an understanding of what is meant by amplified music. I Googled it. It seems that it should have been pretty clear, but it's either electrified amplified instruments or electrified amplified speaker systems, one or the other or both. And I just wondered what that term exactly means in the design guidelines.
May I interject before that answer? For the record, there will be no amplified music of any sort on the property absent a permit for a special occasion. That the description is an amphitheater is a visual amenity. We do not propose amplified music. There are no speakers, there are no microphones. If we have them, it will be on a special case-by-case basis pursuant to a permit to be issued. I swear by all that's holy, if we had known that the phrase amphitheater would have been so loaded, we would have called it a dolly walker. It is simply a visual setting for people to sit and enjoy the outdoors. We do not intend for anything other than the non-amplified music and entertainment venues that you said. So we agree with the most literal interpretation of that, and there was no need to. I don't mean to preclude Amy, please answer, but we don't propose any nuance or finessing around that. We agree that non-amplified music is permitted and amplified music on a permit by permit, case by case.
So for that purposes, non-amplified instruments or speakers, both.
Correct.
I guess I'm not an attorney, but I think from a land use point of view, amplified either means that the speakers that amplifies the music
Mhm.
or the instruments are amplified. So from what I understand, there's no plans to do either one at the development at the current time. But if one is considered, there would have to be a permit process that would have to go through. So Amy, I don't know if you have anything to add to what amplified music means.
Yeah, so to the extent that this is an issue, and if there's ever an issue of interpretation in any source of law, whether it's a regulation, an ordinance, a statute, if the term isn't defined in the source of law, a dictionary definition would default. So amplified, if I were asked by someone
were,
with
yeah.
enforcement authority, what does amplified mean? I would do the same thing you did and look at a dictionary.
As I mentioned, I noticed two different definitions, and I just wondered what the wording in the design guidelines means about amplified. And this discussion came up, as you know, because earlier in July, there was an application for a permit before the city council for a live band that was going to be a charitable event. I wondered where it was, and I wondered if it was amplified or not, and there was no indication, at least on the docket, what it was. So for further reference, I was just interested and concerned, more interested than anything else, in what was meant by those words. So if I go to a dictionary, whatever I find there is going to be what you have designated as amplified. Is that what I hear?
I believe that's the case, that amplified, at least in my terms, is that it's either speakers amplifying the music, acoustic instruments that's being amplified,
And
or the
both-
actual.
both those to cover.
Yeah, and then, or the instruments themselves are, sound is amplified through some sort of sound system, I guess, like I guess it would be non-acoustic music, so.
Okay, so both those situations are covered.
Again, but that would have to be subject, I mean, again, anybody within the waterfront under the design guidelines would have to come in for a permit. And they certainly could request a permit for amplified
Okay.
music.
And in this case, a permit wasn't required or requested because apparently it wasn't amplified.
Well, I know that the request went to the city council. I don't believe it ever went to the waterfront commission. I'm not even knowing what had happened at the council level. So.
Or they approved it, which was fine. Thank you.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Dan Bodwin speaking. Just quickly on two matters. One is the noise study. Is there going to be a noise peer review study, or is that it? What's been produced?
We haven't discussed that, to be honest with you. I think that's something, I don't think we've ever had a noise peer review study though, but I guess that's still something we can consider.
Okay, I have several questions about it. I could not go over it tonight, but I could submit them in writing, and maybe you could put them into your consideration.
That would, yeah, be excellent. We could certainly provide those questions also to the applicant
Sure.
if we get the
No.
response. So at the next meeting, we could probably have a more productive conversation.
Okay, and just one comment about the noise study. While it does meet all these federal guidelines and all, it does say that the traffic noise increase on the residential streets will be noticeable and very noticeable. So, traffic will go up 4 times. It's going to be the noise difference there, even though it might hit federal guidelines. The second thing on the scenic highway board, I didn't quite understand the discussion that you were saying that you wanted to get a letter from them. My understanding is the scenic board, it's a separate public body with its own rules, its own regulations, its own public meeting requirements. I don't quite understand how you can get a letter for them without going to the board. I think you mentioned going to the staff. I didn't quite get it. I just want a clarification as to what was trying to be accomplished here.
The question was raised, at one of the public meetings in the recent past, if the scenic board was going to be reviewing the recommendations from Rhode Island DOT. From what I understand is, from Mr. Berlinski, is that the people from the DOT are the same people that are on the historic board. So,
No, that's not true. The historic board has its own
the
body.
scenic highway. He'll explain it again. That's the way I interpret it.
Scenic Highway is its own board. It's appointed, I believe, by the governor. It works in conjunction with DOT. The Scenic Highways does not have its own staff. It relies upon the staff of the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. So as part of the DRC requirements, we procured a letter from DOT that indicated a preliminary approval of the design that we proposed for the traffic and the offsite improvements that we submitted for the record in June. At that meeting, a member of design review asked whether or not it was possible to obtain a similar letter from Scenic Roadways. We said we look into it. We are looking into it.
Okay, thank you. I wouldn't think it's possible to do that because the scenic roadway have the public input process that they go through before they make any decision. So I think you'd have to go back and just take a good look at the rules and regulations.
They have
Okay.
hearings on proposed.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
but
before any letters are issued.
In terms of the staff, though, do they have staff for their board?
Well, you have DEM on it, they have staff, you have the Historic Preservation Commission, they have staff. So you have different bodies on that board, and all of which have staff and have to make a comment about the effect of this on a scenic highway. So it's not just RIDOT, but you get input, which is good, from a lot of different state agencies, as well as the public. It's part of the process.
The Parkway is overseen by both DOT and DM, from what I understand.
What's that? I'm sorry.
The Parkway is overseen by both DEM and DOT.
Yes, and sometimes there's some confusion as to who does what, but you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as we've established previously, just along those lines, we can't go to Scenic Roadways, nor can we go to DOT for that matter, until we have an approved project to present. So that was the issue. We were able to get the initial buy-in from DOT, but we can't present before Scenic without an approved project because you only receive one approval from Waterfront. So, so we've got a chicken and the egg situation. We're doing the best we can to get that, and we'll update the DRC.
Thank you. That was my misunderstanding.
Okay, anybody else from the public would like to comment or have a question on the material that was covered tonight?
Hi, Renee Chacoin. I just have a question for Paul that's been nagging in my brain. I'm just curious why you only go 3 feet. Because, when you bury people, you go deeper than 3 feet. So I've been curious from the beginning as to why it's just 3 feet.
Well, that's absolutely true. You don't do it within 3 feet. But grave shafts and burial mounds are evident right away as soon as you take off what we call the earth housing. So we can see those features. We go into an historic cemetery where everyone is buried in a shaft. You strip off the topsoil, you will see all those.
The logical reason, but I was thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to present or discuss tonight? September 18th, 19th?
September 19th, we're letting you off easy tonight. We got one month.
Right.
So everyone enjoy the rest of your summer.
So in the meantime, we'll be updating the website, getting information to the public and the staff and also the commission members. And then the 19th, likely we'll have some discussion on phase 1A, assuming planning board does whatever they're
Possibly
going to
phase 1A, definitely traffic. And hopefully utility sign off altogether. We'll definitely do stormwater, we'll definitely do traffic, and possibly phase 1A will, remains to be seen. But we'll announce it well in advance so everybody knows. And we'll also be speaking about some of the overall, we'll revisiting design guidelines as well. We have some big things in store. It's going to be a real treat for all of us. So that's it. But yeah, we're going to try to bring a lot of the stuff forward and have some conclusions. But thank you again for your patience and cooperation. It's really been a productive process thus far, and thanks so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Do we take a vote to continue this until September 19th? So can I take a vote to continue the public hearing until September 19th?
Motion.
All those in favor? A motion passes. We'll see everyone on September 19th. Next item on the agenda is the staff report.
It was a meeting of the DRC to look at the Phase 1A report or request, and it was unanimously approved at that meeting to request the planning board and the Waterfront Commission to issue a letter that says that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. I have to write that letter. I was waiting for one piece of information today. I got it. I will write that and it'll be sent to everybody by email. And the next time, it'll go to the planning board, and the Waterfront Commission itself has already recommended that at the last meeting of the Waterfront Commission. So it's just following up with the DRC's recommendation. There was a Live Nation concert venue pre-application workshop on August 1st, where some plans, draft plans, and technical discussions were initiated, and that was continued to a date. So I think they wanted to do it on August 15th. I'm not sure of that because I've not been noticed. And there's like 20 people at that meeting, so they're probably trying to assemble everybody to put them in the room and to continue the application. Nothing's been public. It's not public yet. So they just gave everybody some ideas about what they're considering, and it will continue. The Rhode Island Ready permitting process for 9 Dexter Road has been submitted by John Savage and Bobby Sykes of Power Engineering, and we are in the process of negotiating a memorandum of understanding. There are a couple of things that need to be worked out, and Amy and Bill and I are on a conference on that on the phone shortly, and then we'll send them a memorandum of understanding for them to agree to, and they probably will, and they'll take over the permitting process to some degree. Fourth quarter grant request for $50,000 to Rhode Island Commerce was approved. It was in the budget. It was approved in the budget. But last week it was finally approved, and it's now available. So I have to that's available for us to draw on for the next fiscal year. Now I am able to write the request for next fiscal year, where we're going to ask for an increase. We talked about it, and it's going to be any place from $75,000 to $100,000. State will give us more money to pay for our operating expenses. That's it.
Any questions for Ray? Great. Just an FYI, I believe the city planning board is having a meeting next week to have a hearing on this comprehensive plan. So I think it's Tuesday night. Might want to check the city calendar. So
They're meeting tonight.
yeah, I think they're having a separate one on the comprehensive plan next.
Separate?
Yeah, tonight I think it's just the planning board and some subdivisions on Moran Avenue. So, but just as a public announcement. So, with that said, can we have a motion to adjourn? All second? All those in favor?